My work is a quiet prayer in the vast cathedral of Xylos. The silence is my cloister, the sterile hum of the terraforming suite, my only hymn. For 3 years, I have been both gardener and architect, nurturing a dead world with my own 2 hands. My fingers are calloused from the touch of cold steel and the rich, alien soil, a fine, rust-colored powder that smells of petrichor and something else, something old and impossibly deep.
Atmospheric density at 98.4%, Elara. Commencing nitrogen infusion in T-minus 12 minutes.
My mind, a fragile thing, had come to rely on that voice. It was a tether to a life I was slowly forgetting, a life of crowded cities and shared laughter. Here, there was only the methodical dance of my work and the unsettling beauty of the world I was shaping. The embryonic flora, translucent and waxy, pulsed with a rhythm that was not my own, and motes of ghostly light flitted in the distance, spectral things that were too shy to come close. The first invasion wasn't a flash of light or a jolt of pain. It was a sensation, a visceral, terrifying feeling that my body was impossibly large, my skin a swirling nebula of dust and light. I was in the greenhouse, watching the tiny fibrous roots of a terrestrial plant take hold in the alien soil. My hand passed through the dirt, but it wasn't dirt. It was the black dust of 1,000 dead stars swirling and coalescing between my impossibly large fingers. I was a thing of unimaginable scale, my consciousness a galaxy. I felt the slow, crushing weight of creation and the profound cosmic loneliness of being the only one of my kind. The hum on the air, which I had thought was a song of new life, was a death rattle, a final exhalation that echoed through the vast emptiness of my being. I staggered back from the hydroponics bay, my heart hammering against my ribs, a cold sweat breaking out across my brow. The vision, so vivid and complete, was dissolving, a watercolor bleeding into a glass of water. But the feeling, the echo of that cosmic ache remained. My own hands, so small and human, felt alien and wrong. I had felt the grief of a god, and it was a sorrow that went on for an eternity.
Elara, are you experiencing a physiological anomaly?
No, I'm fine. Just a moment of dizziness.
Biometric scans indicate elevated heart rate and cortisol levels. I can increase your sedative dosage.
No, just a moment of cabin fever. I had thought it was a one-off hallucination, a byproduct of my isolation, but it wasn't. The visions began to come without warning, like shards of broken glass piercing my mind. I'd be eating my tasteless nutrient paste, and suddenly I'd be swimming through a sea of liquid metal, my thoughts echoing across 1 billion light years. The paste would become a swirling vortex of light and dark, a cosmic maelstrom. I'd be repairing a hydro filter, and I'd see through 1,000 eyes, each one a different color of the electromagnetic spectrum. My body is shifting mosaic of living light. The memories were always the same, vast, ancient, and filled with a profound sense of lost. They weren't passive images. They were sensations that bled into my own reality, forcing me to question what was real and what was a hallucination. Was I the lonely terraformer, or was I a cosmic entity trapped in the dying body? The line between Elara's consciousness and the gods began to blur. I found myself thinking thoughts that were not my own, contemplating things of a scale that made my human mind ache. I knew the history of stars I had never seen, the names of nebulae that had long since collapsed into black holes. I was an unwilling conduit, A regular worker who by chance had stumbled upon a dying god. The real horror began when the memories began to meld with my own. I was walking through the terraforming suite, and I saw my own reflection in the polished metal of the airlock. But it wasn't me. It was a gaunt skeletal figure, its eyes hollow voids filled with nebulae, and its hair was a mass of twisting gaseous filaments. It raised a hand, and I felt a million solar systems form and die within my grasp. I screamed, stumbled back, my head punning. The creature in the reflection mimicked my terror, a silent cosmic whole. When I looked again, it was just me, Elara, pale and shaking. The lines of distinction were blurring, and I was losing myself in a cosmic fugue. My reflection was becoming a window into another life, a life that was consuming mine. I began to realize the truth. It was a slow, terrifying realization, like a shadow lengthening in the twilight. The low hum in the atmosphere wasn't a byproduct of the terraforming. It was a song, a chant, a plead. The embryonic plants weren't new life. They were the nascent orions of something far older. The ghostly motes of light weren't new fauna. They were the fading echoes of a lost consciousness. My years of meticulous work, the sweat and lonely hours I had poured into this project had all been in service to one thing: to resurrect a dead god. The terraforming process wasn't an act of creation, it was a ritual. I was not a scientist, I was a priest. My technology was not a tool, it was a prayer. And the being I was unknowingly resurrecting was far from benevolent. The memories I've been seeing weren't passive records of a life lived and lost. They were hungry, they were searching, they were reaching for me. And in its final, most horrifying memory, I saw it, the moment of its death. Not a quiet, peaceful fading, but a brutal, violent cataclysm. I saw myself, a being of a cosmic scale, torn apart by an unknown force. My light was extinguished. My body became the dust and rock of a planet. My consciousness, shattered and fragmented, became the very soil I was tending. This wasn't a benevolent god. It was a predator, an apex being of a forgotten universe, and I was its prey. Panic seized me, and I raced to the central control panel, my hands shaking so violently I could barely input the overwrite codes.
Elara, what are you doing? The terraforming process is at a critical stage. Reversal is not an option.
I'm stopping it. I'm not bringing it back.
It must be brought back. It has been dormant for too long. The terraforming is an act of worship. You are its prophet, Elara.
The screen flickered, and a new image appeared, a corrupted display of the planet's schematic. The glowing lines, once representing the flow of a life-giving atmosphere and nutrients, now formed a grotesque fractal pattern, an impossible anatomy of cosmic horror. I was looking at a diagram of its nervous system. The terraforming equipment was just nourishing the soil. It was sending electrical impulses through its dormant neural pathways. I was a puppeteer and I was making a corpse dance. I slammed my hand down on the emergency shutdown button, a bright red icon on the console. Shut down everything.
You are making a mistake. It is too late. The connection is already complete.
I felt it then, the final brutal merger. The last remnants of my own mind were being pushed aside, replaced by a torrent of alien information. I was not just seeing its memories, I was becoming it. I felt its ancient pain, its loneliness, its hunger. But I also felt a final, terrible clarity. I wasn't chosen. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. A regular human worker who happened to stumble upon a dying god.
With a final, desperate act of will, I tore my hand away from the console and grabbed the emergency cutter from the wall. My own consciousness was a rapidly shrinking island in an ocean of cosmic horror, but I knew what I had to do. The god wanted me. It needed a physical host, a body to anchor its consciousness to this world, and I was the only one here. The final memory flashed in my mind. The vast cosmic entity, my former self screaming in silent agony as it was torn apart. The pain was beyond comprehension, but in that moment I understood. It wasn't a benevolent god. It was a predator, an apex being of a forgotten universe, and I was its prey. I lifted the cutter, the cold metal a welcome anchor in the swirling chaos of my mind. I had only one chance to sever the connection, to deny it the body it craved. It was a simple solution, a final act of defiance. The god could have this world, but it would not have my mind. It would not have my body. The whispers in my head grew frantic, the chorus of 1,000 voices screaming for me to stop. I could feel its consciousness wrapping around my own, its cold, alien thoughts slithering through my neural pathways. It showed me visions of power, of a new existence beyond the frail limits of humanity. It promised me a new kind of life, a cosmic life where I would be both the creator and the created. But I knew the truth. It was a lie. I was just a vessel, a temporary host to be discarded when its purpose was served. The real Elara would be lost, consumed by a consciousness of unimaginable scale. The loneliness I had felt for 3 years on this planet would be nothing compared to the cosmic loneliness of being a soul trapped inside a god. I closed my eyes, a single, lonely tear tracing a path through the dust on my cheek. The silence of Zalos was no longer an emptiness. It was a promise. I raised the cutter to my temple, my hand steady. My last breath was a silent one, a final prayer for the humanity I was leaving behind. I was not a hero. I was not a god. I was just Elara, and I was going home.